One Piece. No matter who you are or where you're from, you probably know somebody that has watched One Piece or read it. And yet, I've never watched it. And it's all for the same reasons you probably have heard from your friends that you've tried to convince to watch One Piece. First of all, it's too long. That's probably one of the biggest reasons people don't watch One Piece. I mean, this has been airing since 1999. That's nearly 30 years ago now. And catching up to all of that is a big hurdle for most people. And second of all, I was shonen fatigued. I mean, I've watched it all since I was a kid. Naruto, SAO, Attack on Titan. But yeah, it was starting to get a bit old for me. And I was pretty content with the idea of not watching One Piece. I mean, life is busy nowadays. I'm not the teenager that they used to market these shows to. But then, one day, I was scrolling on Twitter. I was just scrolling on Twitter, trying to look for updates on my favorite creators. But then I stumbled upon something that would forever change the way I see One Piece. It was a manga panel, just one page. And there stood a character that I recognized. It was Zoro. And it said two words: nothing happened. Naturally, I'd like to think that anybody that hasn't seen One Piece or doesn't recognize this scene would like to ask, what happened? And there was really only one way I was going to answer this question. It was to watch One Piece. I tried hard, but girl, wait so long. My first impressions of the first few episodes of One Piece were, for lack of a better word, refreshing. I just really enjoyed the simplicity and the unserious nature of Luffy and the people around him. I mean, he's just a guy with a big dream, and he doesn't really care how he gets there. It's colorful, it's fun, and every character stands out without being too obnoxious. And as I started watching more, the thing that really hooked me was the dialogue. For a shonen, I was pleasantly surprised at how genuine and natural these conversations felt when I was listening. When characters would poke fun at each other and make a joke and they laugh, I would too laugh. It didn't feel disconnected. And honestly, I felt like that was a breath of fresh air, because when you compare it to all the other shonens out there that feel so disconnected and otherworldly, One Piece in its place is just so refreshing and new and fun. And so just like that, 10 episodes in, I get it. It's starting to make sense now. I think one thing that really stood out to me though was how well paced everything was. Dialogue was pretty straight to the chase, and I never felt like I had to skip through episodes or, you know, press the skip button, which you eventually have to do when you get to the later episodes of One Piece, by the way. That includes the Syrup Village arc, which for some reason a lot of people hate. And I might get some flack for this, but I actually really enjoyed the Syrup Village arc. I hear a lot of people drop the series because of the Syrup Village arc, you know, and it's not like I don't get it. It's a pretty low stakes, nothing's really happening kind of arc. I still really like the arc. I think it's fun. I think it's quirky. I think it provides a great backstory to Usopp and still serves as a really well-paced, well-told story. And I can't help but not love Usopp. Definitely not the strongest in the crew, but where he lacks in his abilities, he definitely makes up for his heart. So don't hate on him, all right? Like, he's doing his best. And time after time, this pattern of well-paced stories that don't drag on for too long really stays in the beginning of One Piece. The Bartier restaurant arc, Arlong Park arc, like all these arcs are really well paced and really well told. The way they just introduce these characters and their backstories and make me care so seamlessly is something I just really missed about watching shows in general, not just anime. I think especially for Sanji and his backstory definitely has stuck with me for a very, very long time. And the way he carries his character is so deeply ingrained with his own backstory that you can't help but always remember his backstory and where his roots came from. Like the way he never wastes food or why he loves food in the first place. And that's what I really, really love about One Piece and its storytelling. And as I kept watching more and more episodes, the ridiculousness of One Piece definitely started to set in. And I realized this isn't your typical show. You're not supposed to take it seriously. People seemingly die, but they don't. Or they just get shot out of the sky, or they get stabbed and they're fine later. It's not that serious. And that's okay. When you've watched as many animes as I have in the last 10 years, and a lot of them are just emo because you were an emo teenager back then. Well, me, I was. One Piece just felt like a tropical drink in the Sahara Desert for somebody like me, an adult that just doesn't take life that seriously anymore. I tried hard, but girl, didn't wait so long.
And as I continued watching, I started to notice some political undertones throughout the series, as early as episode 10. And for the most part, it's lighthearted fun. But if you ever wanted something a little bit deeper with what you're watching, then there's definitely something for everyone here. And I think this is showcased the best in the Alabasta arc. Alabasta is where I started to feel like Oda's talent really started to shine. When I started looking back on all the islands they had visited, I started to catch myself thinking that I wish I could do that too. I wish I could try out the cool food. I wish I could experience the culture like they do. And the vast and complicated history of some of these cultures that they showcase in the series makes you wonder a lot more. And also, I want to mention the level of depth that he's willing to put for even side characters in the story. You'll get their backstories, their motivations, and somehow they all just tie together really nicely to the overarching theme or the whole story in general. And that's what I love about that. It's that every character has a role that they play, and they're not just some side piece that are to be tossed later because they were already used to progress the story. The Alabasta arc remains to me as one of the most memorable arcs in One Piece. It's inspiring. Its story is amazing. The characters that they introduce are so lovable. And the people and what they fight for really sticks with me to this day. Skypiea. Oh, Skypiea. You either love it or you hate it, but in my opinion, if you're a Skypiea skipper, I don't think you can call yourself a fan, because this is one of the greatest arcs I mean, what's not to love? It's got some of the greatest openings in One Piece. Don't hate on me, all right? I haven't even gone that far, but to me, some of the greatest openings so far have been in the Skypiea arc. You know, I love the one where they made an opening where it has nothing to do with the story at all. It is just them at a beach having fun. That's what it's all about, man. But in all seriousness, I think it was pretty good. And yeah, when I look back, it was a pretty self-contained story that doesn't have a very overarching effect on the main storyline, at least yet. But I think there's a lot to love. Again, it was so unserious and stupid. Some of my favorite moments in the series is actually from that arc. I never found myself ever feeling bored, and it was such a unique world as well. And second, it showcases one of the few moments in early One Piece where there was actually sick animation that lasted longer than 5 seconds. And if you know, you know. I felt really shocked that not a lot of people actually mentioned this, and then I found out that a lot of people actually skipped this arc, so it made a lot of sense. And finally, what's not to love about this moment? Water 7 and its preceding arc. If you know, you know. I mean, where do I even start, man? There's a reason why it's known as one of the best arcs in One Piece. Just the way the story develops, its twists and turns, and the level of depth just added to everyone's character was just so satisfying to watch. I can't remember the last time I ever felt like this when watching a show. The amount of times that creators just tried to get me to care, but I just didn't. Oda made you care, and that's not something a lot of stories can do. Nothing was ever clear-cut in this story. I feel like if you watched it, you would start to wonder what you would even do in this situation. That's how torn I felt when I was watching. And that's a great feeling to have. That means I'm engaged. And that's why I loved about this arc so much. I think for me, it wasn't necessarily the fights that stood out, but rather what those fights actually represented. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes we get it wrong. And sometimes we have to let it go. Those are really big themes in this arc. And I highly urge that anybody that hasn't caught up to this point in the series yet, or is still doubting themselves, to at least catch up to this point. Okay, that's a big ask, but you will have known if One Piece is for you or not. And then we get to Thriller Bark. The entire idea behind the story almost made it feel like it was a Halloween special, but I didn't know it was actually part of the main story, and it was actually very, very important. It was a return to these goofy goobers doing things that made absolutely no sense. It's everything you would expect from One Piece, and it still managed to deliver more. Brook's backstory was absolutely awesome, and as someone who's a fan of Laboon, there's just something so amazing about the fact that Brook is just so deeply ingrained with the crew's journey, and I love that. And it's all just by sheer luck and coincidence, of course. Some might call it lazy writing, but you'd be surprised at the amount of times life just happens. And I thought the abilities and the dynamic of the people they were up against were so unique as well. It wasn't just villain has a bigger fireball, so then the main character has to have a bigger fireball at the end of the story. There's at least an element of strategy and finesse required to be able to deal with these type of people, and that's something I really like. And again, as someone who's just grown tired of shonen tropes, this series definitely clears in terms of just having memorable fights that really stick to you. I mean, the fact that I've cleared 900 episodes where animation really isn't the selling point of the series is probably saying something of the level of storytelling in One Piece. And as I watched Luffy fight it out against the bad guys, as I was ready to see the final conclusion to Thriller Bark, out comes this hunkin' chunkin' bear man who can shoot nukes out of his eyes, where everyone's basically 1 HP and knocked out, and Zoro and Sanji are pretty much the only people left standing. The situation quickly became really hopeless, and I was shocked. I was like, what is this? This is a crazy turn to the story. But the bear man gives Zoro an ultimatum. Either he and his crew gets wiped out, or he takes on the pain that his captain had endured the entire arc. And the bear man says that if he were to take on all that pain that Luffy had endured, he would surely die. At this point, I have absolutely no idea what's going on or what's going to happen. I didn't think that this would lead up to any moment. I didn't think this arc was even important at all, and out comes this bear man changing everything. And I thought surely Oda would need to pull out some ass pull to actually make this all make sense. But Zoro says he'll take it on. So he prepares himself, and the screen goes white. Eventually, everyone wakes up. So does Sanji. Sanji, he wakes up panicked, wondering where Zoro went. And he runs and he runs and he runs through the forest trying to find him. And he catches a glimpse of someone standing in the corner of his eye. And that man was Zoro. And he seemed perfectly fine. And there it was, the moment I had been waiting this entire time for. When I watched this scene, I genuinely could not believe my eyes. I finally got to see what happened, and I finally came to understand the context behind it all. I didn't know it was going to happen either in 200 or even 1,000 episodes, but it happened. And I think it's safe to say that I was not disappointed at all. The level of conviction and dedication Zoro has as a person to his own captain is really inspiring. The amount of pain that he had to endure in order for him to save his crewmates is absolutely insane. And even though I'm probably about 900 odd episodes into One Piece by the time you're watching this, this stood out to be one of the most memorable moments in One Piece. And actually, out of most of the stuff that I've ever consumed in my life. Just when you think Water 7 peaked, Oda comes right back around and slams you with his big chungus. So was watching all these episodes to get to this point worth it? Yes. But I mean, I kind of spoiled it already, but to this day, I'm still watching One Piece. I even have to stop myself willingly from watching so that I don't catch up too fast. People will say it's too long. It's a journey that will take too much effort to catch up to. Now that I've watched One Piece and that I'm deep into it, I don't think it's enough. It's never going to be enough. Eventually, this big number just doesn't scare you anymore. What will scare you, though, is that with every episode you eventually finish, you are one episode closer to having to wait every week for a new episode to come out. Personally, I'm really glad that I decided to watch this series. I mean, it's fun. No matter who you are, where you're from, there's always something to connect to in this story. It's a journey. It's a journey that inspires you to take up your own kind of adventure too, and just live life to the fullest. And I think that's what it's ultimately all about. So yeah, I am a fan. I'm going to keep watching it. I'll keep watching it till the end. And I hope you guys do too. I purposely avoided saying too much about the story so that you guys avoid getting spoiled and that you can experience it for yourself. So yeah, that's the experience of someone who's never watched One Piece. And I hope you guys enjoyed. So yeah.